Is Avengers Infinity War a terrible movie for cinema? In its first 2 weeks, Avengers Infinity War has broken a ton of records and has garnered a lot of praise from both fans and critics alike. Marvel has said that this is the most ambitious crossover ever made, and it has paid off big for both Marvel and Disney. Although, there are some critics who are afraid at how well Infinity War has done, and the impacts it will have on the future of movies. Now, I've seen a couple people complain about this topic, but I'm just going to specifically look at Matthew Rose's article. He is a writer at Saloon.com and is a top critic on Rotten Tomatoes, so I assume some people take his opinion somewhat seriously. Matthew starts off the article by saying, "The Avengers Infinity War isn't just a guised up mediocrity being widely mistaken for a good movie, it's also, at least arguably, a dangerous movie for anyone who cares about the future of American cinema." Now this is just his starting sentence, and he gets into it a little further in depth later, so when he does that, I will do the same. As of right now, let's just get into the article a little bit deeper. By the way, there is going to be spoilers in this video, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, and you do actually enjoy the MCU movies, I highly recommend it. I really liked it a lot. In the first couple paragraphs, Matthew talks about the absurd amount of characters in this movie, going on about how it feels less of a coherent story, and more about writing as many characters in to get as much money as possible. Also believing that most people are just going to show up for their favorite characters, and not for the hype that this movie has garnered. Now, obviously, he is right about how there is an absurd amount of characters in this movie. You look at the cast and how many well-known actors and actresses playing well-known characters and think, this must be the biggest clusterfuck of a movie there will ever be. But the Russo brothers actually do a really good job. The fact that they separated the characters into different groups and didn't just make it one sole group really made the plot easier to follow, with the only storyline being really clusterfucky being the Wakanda one. Like I said, the plot was pretty easy to follow. I was never confused about who was where, and I felt they did a pretty good job at balancing how many characters they had. The only way I can see this movie not being coherent to someone is if they have not followed the MCU so far. And that's the thing about this movie, it is made for the fans. This is the culmination of 10 years of Marvel. This is a movie for the fans of the comics, the MCU, or people who just know the characters well. People have complained about our heroes getting little to no character development, or that it's too rushed, and I get that, but that isn't what this movie is. The past 10 years of movies is our heroes' character development. This movie isn't our favorite superheroes fighting Thanos, it's Thanos fighting our favorite superheroes. This is Thanos' movie, and it shows with the screen time and character development that he gets. Matthew goes on to talk about how good sequels can hold an audience on its own, without the need to watch the previous movie. He also calls this movie a movie loaf, which he describes as a combination of various parts and pieces that could have been organic parts of something that was originally tasty, but here get grounded and mixed up. He does make a good point about how a good sequel should hold on its own. That's 100% true. But this movie isn't just a sequel to the previous Avengers. It's a sequel to every previous Marvel movie in the MCU. He calls Infinity War a movie loaf, but I call it an epic. Honestly, this isn't really a movie, or at least in the traditional sense. There's no 3-act structure, and there's very little character development for our heroes. And when you say it like that, it makes it sound like a bad thing, but it really isn't. Like I previously said, this movie was made for the fans. It's not really supposed to hold on its own. It's part 1 for the finale of chapter 1 of the MCU. It's supposed to be this intense epic with an insane amount of characters, and something completely different that no one has ever done before. In his next 3 paragraphs, he goes on to say how Hollywood loves to push out these movies that don't care about telling a good story and prefer to focus on building a cinematic universe. Also saying that Infinity War is more sinister than these other projects because of its scale and how it will make a ton more money. He also goes on to say that he believes we're likely to see a lot more movies like this one. Now, Marvel has definitely set a trend for people wanting to start a cinematic universe, but let's see how well that's gone for everybody else. The Dark Universe? After The Mummy flopped, they have decided to cancel the universe indefinitely. The DCEU is not very well received by the general audience, and many people believe they have yet to make a good movie. The Monster Universe? Those have actually gotten some pretty decent ratings, so that one might do pretty well. My point is, a cinematic universe is not an easy thing to make. If you fall on your first or one of your first movies, it can ruin the entire thing. Look at all the MCU movies. The worst rated movie on Rotten Tomatoes is Thor: The Dark World at a 66%. and that was their 8th movie released. Their second worst rated is The Incredible Hulk at a 67%, which yes, was their second movie released, but most people don't even count it as canon anymore. And yes, I know Rotten Tomato does their scoring weird, but I know a lot of people look at the Rotten Tomato score to see if they should see a movie or not. So honestly, I don't think we're gonna see a lot more movies like Infinity War. The reason the movie works is because it's taken 10 years to set up this movie. If people are just gonna make more movies like Infinity War, they better put in the same work that Marvel did, or else it's going to turn out terrible. Let's look at DC for example. They made 3 movies setting up their Justice League movie: Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, and Wonder Woman. They were trying to make a movie not like this one, but like the first Avengers, and that movie had a ton of issues with it. Even if you enjoyed it, you still gotta admit that it did not go well. It just goes to show you that you can't just throw well-known characters together and have it be a good movie. It takes time to build up your characters and make it interesting for a new audience. His final point, now this is really where the spoilers kick in, so if you still haven't seen it, here's your warning. 3, 2, 1. Is that although they killed off about 50% of the cast, we all know they're gonna come back, and he hopes they don't make their resurrections in a contrived way. Although he does finish his article off by saying that he is hopeful for the next Avengers, as he believes it'll be more focused and character driven, as there are much less characters. Obviously, most of the cast that did die are gonna come back, but I don't think that was really ever a question. The biggest question for me going into the movie was if they were actually gonna kill off half the cast, which they did, and I thought that was a great move. I think it's pretty obvious that everyone who got turned into dust is gonna return, but I think a big question is if anyone who got killed off before that is gonna return, those being Loki, Gamora, and Vision. I think it's very possible that those 3 are dead for good, and we also still have another movie that will likely end the story to many of our Phase 1 characters. For the way they get resurrected, I would assume they would just use the Infinity Gauntlet to bring them back. I don't really see how else they could do it, and honestly, I'm fine if they do it that way. I don't really think there's any other way they can do it. And finally, I'm glad that he is hopeful for the next Avengers. I'm really excited about it too. With who is left, it's mostly just our Phase 1 characters, with a couple extras, so I think it should bring the feel of the first Avengers back, and I think it will be a good send-off for those who have stuck with their characters for so long. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys liked the video, make sure to leave a like, and make sure to hit subscribe for more content like this. I also do plan on doing reviews for movies in the future as well, so if you're interested in that, make sure to stay tuned. Anyways, that's it. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.